Hello, everybody. I guess we're starting now. Let's do this. Welcome to Comic-Con Day 2. Is it Day 3 for some people, I guess, right? Is everybody feeling good on a Friday morning? Excellent. Well, we are glad that you are joining us here at the Expanse, a Telltale series panel here at San Diego Comic-Con. I am Andrea Rene. I'm sorry I smudged my card here. I am the co-founder and host of What's Good Games, a video game podcast. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And I am pleased to be joined on stage by two members of the development team on this fantastic game. Please welcome Stefan Frost, the game director.
Hello.
From Deck 9, and Alistair, the cinematic director.
Hello.
And as you probably notice, we are missing one of our panelists, Cara Gee, who plays Kamina Drummer, and we were very excited to have her join us on stage, but unfortunately she could not be here today. But I believe we have a little message from Cara, yes?
Oye, Beltalada! It's your girl, Cara Gee. I play drummer in the Expanse video game. I'm so excited for you to play it and to find out what choices you guys make and how you enjoy it and to see how it all turns out. We've put our hearts and souls into it, and I really hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much. Taki.
5G! 6G! Turning now!
I've been at this a long time. When there's a treasure this big, I make it my business to know about it. The coordinates on that data drive, they're for the MK core.
We got a job, Baratnas.
Cox promised us a real payday. He said, give me 3 months, and you never have to work again.
I've heard that before.
Whatever this is, it could still be everything you need to help the belt.
Do we want to invite that kind of attention?
In and out. No games.
Time to see what all the fuss is about.
We've been locked.
Don't these Pashangwalas rest?
What do you think we should do?
There is no good option. Whatever you choose will be wrong, and it's your job to choose.
When you find what's at the other end of those coordinates, the whole system will be on your ass.
What are you waiting for?
Stations! On my word, loose a PDC volley, then turn and burn.
Just like series. Only this time, no dolls to keep you on the leash, yeah?
I hope that my actions on this ship can offer some amends for my past.
Whatever this treasure is, the one thing we know is that it will change everything.
So are you going to spend the rest of your oxygen feeling sorry for yourself? Or are you going to get to work?
Yeah. Hype. So Frost, let's start with you. I'd love to hear a little bit about how Deck 9 came to be working on this project and what your guys' relationship with Telltale is, because if you guys aren't aware, this is the first new IP that Telltale is working on since they've reformed back in 2019. But Deck 9, you guys have a long history of building fantastic narrative games as well. Shout out to Life is Strange fans.
Yeah, absolutely. So working on this game sort of started by a conversation with Deck 9 and Telltale. And you hear the name Telltale, and instantly you think about these awesome games that they've made. So I think it was a no-brainer for us to work with such a storied company, pun intended. So when we were approached by them, we talked about a couple of titles that we could work on, and Expanse came up, and there are definitely Expanse fans, at Telltale and at Deck 9. So that opportunity was big for us, so we definitely jumped on it.
Alistair, were you #1 Expanse fan before you started working on this game?
I definitely had a lot of homework to do once I found out we were going to be working on The Expanse, but I instantly fell in love with the show. It was just so amazing, and the characters and the way that they portrayed space, and honestly, the cinematography, I loved all of it. It's great.
Yeah, Jeremy Benning was like a huge inspiration for what we did, I think.
Yeah, I definitely had to look at Jeremy Benning, who was the cinematographer on the Expanse show, and he had a huge impact, unknowingly probably, just trying to look at all of his work on the show and what he did and taking apart things and just trying to understand how to make the Expanse game feel like it's in the universe.
I think this is a great time for us to maybe ask you, what is a cinematics director, talking about cinematography and looking at how you would do it in a different medium and translating it to a video game. So like if I wanted to be a cinematics director, like what would that look like?
Yeah, I think that cinematics, the kind of the job, the way you would get that job in the industry is kind of a unique one. It's kind of strange. Like I started doing YouTube and making my own 3D shorts and didn't really expect it to turn into this, but really kind of paying attention to cameras and what they do and how they can tell a story and how they can inject subtext into a narrative, receiving a script. I'm not necessarily writing the story. Frost and the writers are doing that. And I'm kind of taking that script and looking at it and say, okay, how can we portray this on screen? How can we shine the actors in the best light and really tell the story subtextually?
So as the game director, Frost, are you the one who gets to make the final decision on what all of these wild narrative branches are going to be, or is it like a team effort?
Oh, it's definitely a team effort. It's definitely not me going, you know what, we're going to remove some legs today. That's what we're doing. I think a lot of what we focus on is trying to find the core of what made The Expanse good, and that's character work. That's at its core. There are so many great characters when we were looking at what we could do and where we could go. That was the first focus. Beyond that, there are things that are very specific to The Expanse. One thing that was a directive from me was we have to be able to space somebody like that. Have to. So in the first, and you'll see it when you play the game, within the first minute, we see the captain of a ship being dragged down a hallway, kicking and screaming, and thrown into an airlock, and Drummer puts her hand over the button, and then it cuts and then says like 8 hours earlier. So it's coming. You get to space some dudes.
The anxiety is already building, and I love it. So obviously, I'm sure people in this room know that there are many novels in the Expanse franchise. What was it like meeting the writer, or should I say writers, when you guys started working on this project?
So there were 3 really intense moments that made me nervous working on this project. Doesn't happen often, but meeting Ty and Daniel, I didn't want to fuck it up. Sorry for the bad language. I didn't want to pitch to these guys that created this huge, expansive world.
Oh, come on, it was right there.
I'm a dad, guys. Give me a break, all right? I didn't want to mess that up. So when I was coming to them, the thing to me was we did a lot of research. We had obviously seen the show. I'd read the books. And so when we were talking to them about stuff, the thing that sort of made sense, and this is mostly based on the show, right? We still read the books, but it was mostly on the show. The thing about Drummer as a character that worked really well was she didn't have novellas. She didn't have a lot of backstory that we really saw. We saw her progress and grow over season 2 through 6, and so we get to see that arc. But how did this badass character come to be was really kind of my pitch. So we wanted to make a video game novella about Drummer. And so when I pitched that to them, as we were going through, I sort of like D&D DM'd it, right? Like I was talking through the story. I did the same thing with Cara too. And I would say, here are the beats, here's the notes. Okay, here's the choice. Do you space this guy or not? And they would be like, oh, okay, cool. So they would talk about that, and they gave us feedback on characters or events, or gave us hints about spots in the timeline of their creation that allowed us to create moments that I think are really interesting. We also explore first generation belters in this a little bit and dig into that. And so getting to talk to them about what that would look like was really cool. But they were great. They were awesome, very supportive, very down to earth. I was really worried, like, oh man, are they going to be mean the whole time and like, just correct you on everything? But they were great. So yeah, no complaints from me.
That's awesome. I think for people who aren't familiar or haven't read the novels, you might know that the Kamina that you see in the show is not the Drummer that you meet in the novels, right? It's like a collection of different characters kind of rolled into one. And because you guys were making a prequel, I mean, it feels like you don't really have any source material to go off of. That seems super easy.
Yeah. Slam dunk, very easy. Took us a short amount of time to do it. No, we definitely looked at that. I mean, the show, yeah, she is an amalgam of characters, right? You have a little bit of Bull in there. You have a little bit of Michiopa. You have like a lot of characters that are put there. So yeah, we had to look at those, but it's funny because I did a playthrough of the game with Cara. Spoiler, you will see this at some point in the future. And it was great because when she's watching this stuff go through, she keeps saying like, "Oh, like Drummer gets moments to be like a normal person and not dead inside," you know? And and I'm like, yeah, because we want to see that progression, right? We want to see story arcs where we have one character starting here and they end here, depending on what story you're telling. And with Drummer, we had to kind of find a balance where, because I think the reason we love Kamina Drummer is she's a no bullshit, tough badass. And how do you get to that point? How do you get that hardened? Well, she's going to have to go through some things. And Cara immediately was like, "So you're telling me this isn't a rom-com?" And I was like,
Oh, I think we'd all buy that game too. keep it in the can. Don't toss it out, okay?
Well, to be fair, there is romance in this game. Yeah. So that will happen. Cara said it will arouse people. That was her exact words.
Oh.
Not mine.
Okay.
Her words, not mine.
I mean, it did say M on the ESRB there, so.
Read the bullets, guys. That's all I'm saying.
I think it's really fascinating hearing how these stories come together. And Alistair, I think your part of that storytelling process kind of fits really in an interesting place. Do you work with the team like before or after some of those storylines are created? Because the way you tell it visually makes such a huge difference in video games.
Yeah, it's really important for me to be kind of lock and step with the story team and what Frost is doing. So I mean, throughout the project, I'm meeting with Frost all the time and the narrative director, John Zim. And just kind of discussing like, okay, what are we trying to achieve here, and what are the most important points of the scene? What do the players need to walk away from having played the scene and understanding? And it's those kinds of conversations that really help me understand what tools can I pull out of the tool bag to achieve that. And
there's also storytelling. A lot of times we just think is writing. I think often. But really, it's like a visual.
It's the whole team. Like every single department has a huge impact on how we tell these stories. It doesn't just end at, well, we wrote the script, now just make it. It's like, well, no, we have to also understand how each of these teams is going to execute on all of these parameters and be successful at it.
Well, I mean, lighting is a big chunk of that. How you
and like lighting comes in at the end, and it has one of the biggest impacts on how everything looks. Like if that trailer that we saw at the beginning wouldn't look nearly as good if it didn't have someone, doing it well.
Yeah.
Well, and the challenge also of working in space, right? Because you don't get to use some of the traditional lighting engines and other kind of animation that's been in video games for a while. You're working a lot of the times inside chips or like in the blackness of the universe, right?
Lighting on this game was very fun because you get to kind of choose, oh, well, I want a red flashing light on the ceiling, which, having worked on Life is Strange, there's no red flashing lights on the ceiling or any weird colors, really. It's all very warm, but on the Expanse, you have a lot of these cool colors. And this one is kind of embedded with the people in the belt. And a lot of that comes with, looking at the show, they have that yellow and green lighting that you would see on the Belter ships, and like looking at all that stuff, it's been really fun applying that, and we've had a really good time.
Speaking of having a really good time, what was it like working with Cara? Was she fun on set? Or was she like super serious?
Kara's very professional, guys. Like I have to tell you, she most of the time. Like she's very professional in that she will come in, she's got everything memorized, ready to go, has thoughts and comments, but she's also a huge ham. So as you can see in the video that we're showing here, we have to do something called an A pose at the end of motion capture. What that does is it allows the sensors and stuff to be aligned. There is not a single time where she does not make a weird face, where she does not sit still, it's just like constant weirdness. So 10 out of 10 would work with Cara again, absolutely. But here's the thing, she's acting like this, but the amount of research that she puts into the character and the moments and the feelings that this character is going through is insanely impressive.
She's having like the most serious moment in the game, and then she turns around and like does this.
Yes.
And
yeah.
Who are you? Like, are you?
It's like, your whole family is dead. I hope you remember this. And she turns around, you know. So yeah, she's great. So yeah, she is awesome. Would work with again. And it's great to see somebody who takes something so seriously not be serious all the time.
I know it would cost, not an inconsequential amount of money to animate all of these faces she's making, but could be a fun Easter egg, Just putting that idea out into the universe as you do.
Also, side note, I've never met somebody who is the literal polar opposite of the character that she plays. Like, you have to find a little bit of something in you that is that character, and she has some badass in her, to be sure. However, when you talk to her, she's like, hi, all the time, and Drummer's like, hey, she's like in the basement, and yeah, it's kind of crazy to see the difference. Shows her range, I think.
I would love to work with her on something someday. She seems cool. You see those people, and you're like, I'd be friends with that person. She seems like that person. I do want to talk to Alistair a little bit more about what it was like working in space. You were telling this great story just a minute ago about getting to use different colors and all the different ways that you changed the art in this game based off your previous projects. But one of the things that we were talking about before the panel was just how difficult it is to kind of nail the motion of being in zero gravity and how different that is from the projects you guys have done before.
Yeah. I mean, usually all of our projects are grounded with gravity, and you don't get that. So needing to portray that into a sense of how do you give that feeling to the player while they're playing the game, and also not make it so that they're feeling sick the whole time, as well as, I think, a huge kind of something that half the team ran into when playing through at times, where they're flying around space and they're like, I feel kind of sick. So having to balance that and like, okay, well, how do we solve that problem as best as we can? But yeah, looking at the show, personally, you see all of the moments in space where they have a little bit of roll on the camera, where the camera just feels a little bit floaty, but not too much. And you don't maybe even really notice it until you look out for it. So whenever we have those zero-G moments, we're kind of trying to inject that and making sure the camera's rolling, or when there's gravity and the ship is under thrust, locking down the camera just a little bit more. Stuff like that.
It was also interesting when we were doing the filming process for this and the motion capture. We had to do these kind of old-timey special effects for gravity, So we came up with this idea with the way that our mocap works. We use kind of like straps where we'd like kind of hang people if they were floating through stuff, or we'd have somebody else like lift them up and put them onto things. But for these moments, you saw it in the trailer where Maya basically tackles Drummer while they're in zero-G, does a flip, and then uses her mag boots to like land on the ceiling. That shot was done by laying down sideways on a dolly, kind of. It just was like a cart with wheels. And we would spin that person on the ground, but then we would put what the ground was in Unreal on its side, so it looked like it was in gravity. But that's some like movie shit, man. Like that's not normally what we do to like make a video game. But
yeah, you look at behind the scene footage of the show, and they've got like these crazy rigs set up with the like a fake sun floating around them to make it look like they're spinning, and it's just like us just on a dolly laying on the ground,
pushing a dude. Yeah,
like literal people like pushing them. It's just like hilarious.
But do you think that because you have such a different tool set in video games that you were able to do things that maybe the television show wasn't ever able to accomplish?
I think we're able to produce maybe a bit more because we have our own proprietary tool set that we use to make our narrative games. And it really kind of empowers us to see the end result instantly and make all of these changes, and not just like moving cameras and characters, but we're throwing in VFX and throwing characters in the environment. We're able to see everything and iterate a lot quicker, and that has been super helpful, and it continues to be fantastic.
It's also, you get those different choices, right, that take you down different avenues. So as an actor, you have to memorize, different lines and areas that which you go, so that changes your character's perspective. So it's a much different feat than normally a linear sort of storytelling thing you'd have to do.
I'm glad that you brought up storytelling and your guys' the storyteller. Is that the name of it?
One of them, yeah.
Yeah, the really cool ways that you build narrative, because that's one of the big hooks of this game, right? Is like you're going to have these really tense situations, and there's going to be these sometimes life or death decisions you have to make, sometimes rather quickly, and it always is stressful. I mean, how do you balance where you want to have some like chill story beats and then like ramping it up? Because who's played the Life is Strange series, right? Not enough hands are up in that audience. Go play it. It's phenomenal. All of them are all very good. We were talking about like the narrative arc through the episodes of like when is there going to be like a high moment or low moment where the twist coming, and then where's like the big reveal. And so when you guys go through that decision-making process, but also that process using your like proprietary tools, what does that look like? And do you guys ever get stuck in that process, or do you have like arguments about which way the decision should go?
Yeah, all the time. I think. Okay, this is a long-ass answer, so prepare yourselves. I think that we had to we map out the story in beats. We have something called a narrative arc that we kind of follow through and take the character through, because we know that there's going to be moments of these high-tension points. You need to give people breaks. You need to have downtime. And some of my favorite moments are the more I don't want to say mundane, because that sounds like it's boring, but like there are moments that you kind of remember that are chill and that are more down to, I can't say down to earth because it's in the belt, but that are like, more calm. And seeing those moments, you have to figure out, you don't want to be there too long because then it gets boring, but you also don't want to be up here the whole time because then you're going to have a heart attack. So you've got to get that right. But you were talking about like the hard choices and arguing over those. We did that all the time. I actually wanted to do a quick poll here, if you don't mind, actually, with the audience here.
Of course.
So there's a tough choice in the game that we have. It's in the first episode. There's a character that we come to know who's a belter named Rene. He manages to get his leg caught between a bunch of materials that you've collected. We're scavengers, basically, so we're finding water, we're finding food, we're finding armaments. We have it in this container vault, and it basically is stuck. And his leg is on there. And so we either need to push out those materials to save his leg or saw his leg off so that it connects and that we're able to save that. If you guys were in this situation.
Wait. So choice A
yes.
is save his leg but lose the supplies.
Correct.
Choice B is cut off his leg but you get the supplies.
Correct. Are we stationary or moving? We're in deep space. We're beyond we're near Jupiter, basically. We're out in the middle of nowhere. We've been traveling for weeks, and our job is collecting stuff, right? So
raise your hand if you're going A, you're saving the leg, but saying sorry supplies, not today.
Okay, A.
Okay.
Who's doing A?
Okay.
My God.
And then B is that leg is gone, baby.
Oh my God.
Okay, now we know exactly what kind of people you are.
I'm never flying with any of you. What is wrong with you people? There's so many people that are like, fuck that leg.
But what if it was your leg? Then which letter would you choose?
Yeah, what do you think about that shit? What if it was your leg?
Huh? I don't see those B hands now. Oh, there's a couple.
All right.
Taking one for the team. We appreciate you.
Okay, I just wanted to know what kind of people you were, that's all. Thank you. You're belters, yeah, I can tell. I can tell you're belters. You get it. Okay, yeah, good to know. It's funny, we try to strive for like choices where it's like 50-50, but that shit is not happening with this one. Yeah.
That was always, one of my favorite parts about finishing a Deck 9 game is at the end where you get to see all the choices you made and then the choices everybody else made. Mm-hmm. And if your choices aligned with, the majority of other people's. And sometimes you'd land in that, 3% of people made this choice and 97% of people made the other choice. And I was like, oh no, did I mess that up?
It's always a little heartbreaking when you see that only like 3% of the players have experienced this cinematic that you may have gotten into arguments with people over. And you're like, did this really matter in the end? Like, does anyone remember this?
It does matter because the choices are there, right?
Yeah.
That's why it matters. It's interesting, actually, is the last episode of our game is technically the shortest in length, but it's the most amount of cinematic content we shot.
Oh, very cool.
So what that means is like your choices matter, and that the decisions you've made along the way will sort of decide the fate of your crew. So like pretty much everybody on your crew can die except for one person, and everybody can live except for one person. So
It's a little like Mass Effect style.
it is like Mass Effect in that way. Yeah.
So we'll see how that leg cutting goes.
Yeah. Like. Yeah. Guess who's gonna remember that? That dude.
I guess that's something that I just forgot to mention, because I'm sure there's people in this room that have never played a Telltale game, or maybe never played a Deck 9 game, and how important each of those decisions truly is, and how they will build upon themselves all the way through each of the episodes. Do you have, obviously, like, you can replay, right? If you, like, changed your mind about a decision, maybe?
You'd have to start a new save, but yeah, you can do that. We wanted you to commit to the answers so that if somebody if you make that call to cut off that leg, that's the call you made. Stick with it. You know, we want you to see what happens through the end. And it's funny because there was a press event, and one of the influencers who had played was saying, like, I'm apologizing in advance for how many people I'm going to kill. It's just not my intent to kill them, but we'll see what happens with my decisions.
It's for the content, right?
Yeah, you got to do for the kids, you know?
I appreciate that. No, I think it's one of those things as players, I simultaneously, like, get frustrated that there are decision timers, and I have to make a decision like on this, like, as it's like counting down, and the little bar is like getting smaller and smaller, and I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And then on the other hand, I go, but that's real life too, because you get faced with things in everyday life that's like, I have to say something to somebody and I'm not prepared. My mind is not moving that fast. And I love the parallels between that. From a storytelling point, Alistair, is there a way that you and your team do that visually? Because obviously with the narrative team, they're like, it's in text. You get to pick one or the other.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of the thing, is we've kind of strayed away from giving you a timer on making choices in this
thank
game.
God.
And
Bless you.
Personally, I'm team. I don't love the timers myself, because I like to. I feel like you won't always make the decision that you would make in the moment, because you're almost half of the time stressing about what should I do, what would I do, and then you don't really end up making the right answer, and then you regret it later, and then you're not happy with your save and the way that the story is going. So personally, yeah.
Yeah, so there are the tough choices, like the airlock choice or the leg choice that you savages all decided on. That is, you could set your controller down and kind of tear your hair out for a bit and think about it and go like, what would I do? We want you to do that. That's good. So there are some time choices, like when you're flying through in 0G, you can interact with things and people will ask you stuff, and you have a certain amount of time to answer that before they get on with their conversation.
That's great, because normally I need enough time to like look up a guide to tell me what the best ending option is, and then that's.
Don't do it.
I'm not the only one, right?
Don't do it. Just play through. Just see how you get through.
I know, stress.
And then you could do round 2, where you're like, everybody's living, you guys. It's gonna be a good one. Legs staying on. Whatever.
I love it. I did want to ask a little bit about some of the other gameplay mechanics that are in the game. Obviously, we've talked a lot about narrative and storytelling and choices, but there's going to be like a little bit of exploration in this game.
There's a lot of it, actually, of exploration. There's so with the Expanse, gravity to me was like a character in the show. It was like such a big component of how you interact with things, whether it was like while you're in thrust. There's that great scene, I think it's in, I don't know if it's season 2 or 3, where Prax doesn't lock down all of the tools and stuff when they're flying around. They almost kill him a bunch of times because he didn't lock it down. There's stuff like that we have to consider. So, and also when they're doing the behemoth salvage in the show, that's drummer floating around, checking stuff out, like salvaging a thing. That was a very big influence in when we were creating it. So the gameplay mechanics, we kind of call it story on the sticks. You're floating around, you're checking out stuff, you're interacting with people, you're talking with the crew. But yeah, you can float around upside down and use your mag boots to click on the walls and kind of walk upside down and get that feeling that you see when you watch the show. That's so cool. Now you can play it and it feels like you're playing an episode of the show. It's awesome.
So you're telling me there's collectibles?
That's correct, yes. And in fact, on your backpack, there are little little lights, and they tell you how there's 8 on there, and once you find a collectible, one of those lights lights up, so you don't even need to press the pause menu to see how many you have left to
I
find.
love that. That's great. Thank
Collectibles that actually impact the story as well.
Yeah, yes.
A great impact on how you can interact with your crew, and maybe you find something that they've been talking about that they've been yearning for, and you can give that stuff to them.
Yeah, so like an example, we have this character who's based on my grandmother-in-law, and her name is Khan. She's incredibly smart. She's incredibly bitter and mean, and also, I love my grandmother-in-law for what it's worth. She is a world-class complainer, and I feed her things to complain about it, and it makes my day. I'm like, can you tell me about the traffic that's going on Knott Avenue? She's like, my God, and she'll go into it. Khan is very much that person, but she's a 74-year-old Vietnamese pilot who smokes cigars, and she has this cigar that's just kind of sitting next to her that she just chomps on, because it's not like you can go to the store and go get a cigar, but if you find one and you're salvaging, she's going to love you, right? But she does not love you when you meet her. She's bitter and mean and funny. So yeah, you'll get to meet Khan when we go through there. But to your point, finding that cigar, if you find that, it will have a huge impact on her character arc and what happens to her in the story, actually.
Yeah.
This is a very good pro tip. I'm very glad that you brought this up.
Yeah, thank you.
Because sometimes I think as players, we try to balance. I mean, obviously there's the completionists out there who are going to do 100% of the things 100% of the time. But I know when I play Deck 9 games, I'm like, okay, I'm going to walk around and look at all the things because the world building and environmental storytelling is always so well done. But also I'm like, okay, I need to know what happens, though. I need to keep moving the narrative forward. So striking a balance between that and also making it rewarding, I think, is a great way to tell players, like, hey, go check out that thing that somebody on the art team spent a lot of time building.
There's spots, I think, if you really want to be an explorer and go check out all the things, that's definitely there. And there's also, we have like a waypoint system, so you can push the button to tell you where to go. If you're one of those people, it's like, just get me to the end. But we hope that you like to explore and check out stuff. We have this cool zero-G mechanic and kind of encourage that sort of thing. But there are tasks, and then there are subtasks. And the subtasks are like, you could explore and find some things, but they could affect the outcome of the story if you find them.
I like it. I realized that at the top of the panel, I forgot to mention, we are doing a fun giveaway at the end of the panel, so don't leave early. But I wanted to ask you both, from the huge roster of characters that are in the novels and, of course, in the show, you settled on Drummer, who I think we all love, but were there any other characters you thought about maybe doing some storytelling with? Because there's some good ones.
I mean, we thought a lot about this. This is, to me, it made the most sense because A, she was my favorite character, and then I was obviously a great influence on everybody else going like, she's the best though, right? So I had a big impact on influencing that, I think. But on top of that, we definitely thought about it. I mean, my favorite characters, I really like Amos. I thought he's great. I really like...
Yeah, we love Amos.
Amos is great. I like Prax a lot, actually. I really like Avasarala.
Yes!
Yeah.
She's such a badass.
Yeah, Avasarala, who doesn't love an old lady that swears, you know what I mean? So, and that's also really powerful and smart and manages to save the world a bunch of times. So, she's one of my favorites for sure.
Oh, does that feel like an announcement, maybe?
Does that feel like a DLC segue into debuting something here? Oh man, thanks for the alley-oop there. You guys want to check this out?
Military scholars have compared the game of empire building to chess for centuries. Sacrifice and adaptation are part of the game. When you have Mars, the Belt, and countless factions running lawless across the solar system, Earth needs someone in this new era of war who can play by the rules and knows to get their hands dirty when it matters. But now, with UNN leadership off-planet, you're telling me she is the most powerful woman on Earth. God help us all.
If only everything was as straightforward as chess. In politics, the rules are always changing.
Yeah, so exciting!
Yeah. So yeah, part of the DLC in our special edition is playing as Chrisjen Avasarala. It's a day in her life. We get to see a lot of really cool stuff here. There's also, if you're a lore nerd, this is probably one of the most impactful days of her life. That's all I'll say about it. But there's some moments in here where we get to discuss, what's happening in the belt. We get to manage relationships with commanders. We get to manage relationships with other politicians that are trying to take away her ability to manage the UN. And on top of that, we also get to have family drama and stuff that's going on as well in her life. But it's really just a day in the life in a bunker. And the funny thing is we had to pitch this to Shore, and she was like, please don't tell me I'm going to be in a bunker again. You're going to be in a bunker again, yeah. So.
Well, since you brought up Shore, Agdashlu, who plays Avasarala, let's just get it out of the way. Was she just as awesome in person as she seems like on TV?
She's amazing. Like having her. So nothing will prepare you for her voice. By the way, like you get to meet. Cara told me this too. I'm like, do you have any advice about working with Shore at all? She's like, you won't be prepared to hear anything that comes out of her mouth because it's going to be amazing and it's going to be like a kitten purring in your ear. And I'm like, okay. And yeah, sure enough, it was. She read through the script and was extremely humble and sweet. And she said she's like, I love this. I can't wait to work on it. I can't do a Shore voice, but she loved it. She came in, was super nice. She said, whose idea was this? And I was like, it was mine. And she gave me this huge hug. So she loves Avasarala, you guys. Like, you have no idea. I think when she heard this opportunity, it was just like, whatever I got to do, I'm going to do this. So working with her on that was a dream. And writing stuff with Avasarala is a lot of fun because, you can be really mean and right, And so writing those scenes and writing those moments, I think, is really good. And she has a performance that literally made people cry in it. So I'm excited for you all to experience it.
Cool. Noted. Bring tissues to the bonus episode. Alistair, how different was it working on this kind of content versus what we're going to see in the main campaign? Because the tone and the vibe seems like it's a little different. Obviously, we're not, in the belt.
Yeah, we're not in the belt, and we're very much so entrenched in a day in the life of what it is like to work for the UNN. And I think that, I'm not really.
I think the main difference that we found with it was that, we had to look at the cinematography in a much different way, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying earlier, when we were looking at the cinematography for In Space, there's a lot of that roll on the camera and stuff, but, we're underground in a bunker where gravity is probably most prevalent. And
there's a lot more up-close stuff, I think we certainly have, like, close-ups and things that happen on the other stuff, but this one is much more personal, and I think, the camera language that we're speaking in this one certainly is much more interpersonal and speaks to, we were talking about like the ups and downs and stuff like that and really focusing on that. And there are some shots in there that are like, I don't know, pretty integral to telling this story.
It was pretty difficult to shoot in just a bunker for an entire episode. Like, how do you make that
just looks like Office Space,
and
right?
It's like, okay, we're kind of just in this office, but she's got this really cool LED wall that you can flip between what kind of cool little landscape that you want in there that may or may not be real.
Yeah, basically we have to look at things that are going on in the belt and, with Mars, and this is a prequel, so this takes place before the show. So we get to see, this is when, tensions are very high between Mars and the belt and the UNN. So there's a lot to navigate there and not start all-out war and also make sure that, the belt is basically this tinderbox that you got to be careful not to light.
I would imagine that from a environmental storytelling standpoint that you have to kind of, really find those key moments since you don't have the broad exploration you do in the other episodes. Are there any like fun things that you are like particularly proud of that, were in like a scene that you worked on that you're like, keep your eye out for that one green coffee mug.
I think there is that, but I think that'd be too spoilery for me.
Yeah, there.
Yeah, no spoilers.
There are certainly moments that you get to. There's an item on the desk that if you're a super nerd for this, would give away what this is about, and that's all I'll say. Side note, I'm gonna say something. There was a point where somebody on the show had said, "Are you sure you want to do or put this item there?" And I said, "Actually," and I don't have glasses, but I fucking pushed them up, and I was like, "Actually, in season 3, in this episode, she mentions this thing," and they were like golf clap. They were like, "Okay, you want to bring this up again?" We were really doing the painstaking research to make sure that we were hitting this well, and this is something this is also awesome to work with Alcon. We had this great relationship with Telltale. We also had this cool relationship with Alcon where we would submit this stuff and we'd get the producers of the show and the writers of the books talking about these things and saying, here's our notes and here's our thoughts on this stuff. And side note, did you know about this? It was a really cool collaboration between the three because we're all huge Expanse nerds. So we all got to really focus on the stuff and make it as, Expanse-orific as possible. I don't know what the fucking word is.
Did you guys get to look at some research documents, either from the writing team or the showrunners, about this is some of the visual inspiration for the visuals that you guys eventually incorporated into the game?
I mean, you have the show, right? I mean, the show is the best point of reference for us that we can just look at, and we have these arguments sometimes of well, what would happen? And we just let's just go look at the show and see. And
we had the show. We also had the art Bible from the show, so we had all of this reference from, what a helmet looks like for Belters, or what it looks like for Martians, or how ships are constructed, or what they are. So if you look at the Artemis, it's very much a Belter ship in terms of its lighting, its coloring, its shape, all that stuff we had to look at. And when we announced this was the game that we were going to work on with the team, our lead environment artist, a guy named Tommy Spampanato, audibly, when I said guys, we're getting the Expanse, and he was like, "Oh my God, yes!" in the meeting, it was like a Zoom call. He unmuted specifically just to do that in front of 60 people. Cool, thank you, Tommy. But yeah, I mean, that guy did all sorts of research, and not only looking at the art Bible, but yeah, the show. I mean, we all have watched the show a bunch of times over just to make sure that we're keeping it as authentic as possible.
I think we all appreciate that, but I know that it must also be challenging to go, where do I put my spin on it, right? Alistair, as a cinematographer and a cinematics director, somebody who looks at how it was visually represented, did you find moments where you were I need to figure out how to make sure I'm not just copying it one for one, and I'm giving it our Deck 9, flair to it?
I think it's important to stay true to your source material and understand how do you build off of that while staying within the universe so that it doesn't feel like something else. And looking at kind of where Avasarala is in her life, and this goes for Drummer too, and where they both are in their life, and we're telling a story from the perspective of both of them. So how does that affect the camera, and what are they trying to achieve, and what kind of subtext can we draw into the camera? Are we shooting low to give them power? Are we shooting up high on them to make them feel a little more vulnerable? And understanding, as the story progresses, when is it right to make those decisions versus not? And kind of applying our own logic to how and when we place the camera, how we're editing, and the lighting as well. How that's kind of our own spin on that.
And Telltale's known for these great cinematic games as well, and having those shots. So I think we have this great understanding between the two companies of how we can frame shots and how we can tell story through cinematic camera stuff. So I mean, it's been great to have not only the experience that we've had from Life is Strange games and stuff, but also the Telltale side of things to get feedback from them on how they do narrative stuff as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important to me and everybody on the team that it feels true to the Expanse and not to stray too far away from that, because at the end of the day, if we were fans of the IP and someone else had gone in there and put their own spin on it and it just didn't quite feel right, we'd be unhappy. So I want to avoid that.
Side note, to totally interrupt everything, Cara just texted me and said she just got roasted by her agent for showing the A-pose video, and she said, thanks for showing that, and she says hi. So.
Well, tell her we say hi back.
I will right now.
And we wish she was here. So I am a huge sci-fi fan, and I love watching sci-fi movies. Alistair, did you do some research when you knew that you were going to be making cinematics for The Expanse, besides watching, the show, of course? Was there any other space stuff that you're like, I should watch this to get some inspiration?
I mean, yeah, I watched some space stuff, but really I just kind of binge watched The Expanse for 2 straight weeks because that was kind of all that mattered to me. I mean, you can look at other stuff like 2001: Space Odyssey and like Sun and Moon and stuff, but really super important to me to make it feel like that, and I didn't really want it to be tainted by anything else. So, yeah.
Frost, you?
I mean, same.
I mean, I don't blame you. The show is great.
Yeah.
I mean, binge watching it is the way to do it.
Yeah, we watched it pretty regularly. I mean, there would be shots too where we'd say comparatively, is there anything like this that's in the show, and kind of take a look at that. And there were shots too, I think, with there are pirates in this game, and space.
You don't
pirates.
say.
Yeah, they're pretty mean. But there's points there's a shot in particular in the 4th episode that is probably one of my favorites in the whole game.
Yeah.
And it shows the scale of the ship compared to Drummer. And it's something that I don't think I really saw in the show as much, but it really shows how there's a point in this game where Drummer is very much alone, and this shot is easily a good representation of the symbolism of that feeling that I love. So I'll say that when you get there in episode 4, you know what I'm talking about.
I think that's in the story trailer.
Maybe it's in the trailer. I can't remember, but
I've seen that image. Yeah, it's with the red skull logo and.
Yeah, it's in the trailer. I messed that up, but it's one of my favorites easily.
Well, that's good. Then you're not going to make us wait for it, because I mean, episode 4 feels like it's a little while away, but episode 1, not that far away.
That's right. Next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
The official release date.
Yeah. The 27th, or if you've pre-ordered, you can play it a day earlier on PlayStation and PC. Guys, I'm super excited for you guys to play this because we've been working on it a long time. We've been putting a lot of effort into it. You can tell. Cara loves it. Man, I'm just happy to have it out in the world and get your thoughts on it. And I clearly don't need to know what's going to happen with the leg, obviously. Know your guys' decision there. It's gone. But yeah, I'm very excited to see what you guys do. And it's coming out every 2 weeks. So we're going to have a new episode. So the first episode is going to debut. Think of it like an HBO show. It comes out. You have some time to talk about it with your friends, argue if you've made the right decisions or not. Apparently have a discussion about how much you don't care about people's legs. And then you can move on to the next thing. Or did you space somebody or not? But it's going to be exciting to see, I think, the conversation between those releases, what people are saying about it.
Now, I always love watching the discourse kind of unfold as the episodes roll out. It sometimes makes me insecure about the decisions that I made, and then I end up going back and replaying episodes. Once you get a couple episodes in, you're like, oh no, that thing I did back in episode 1 is coming to fruition, and I'm mad about it. I think that's part of the charm of the way that these narrative stories unfold. When you guys started working at Deck 9, was that something that you were really passionate about, or is it something you kind of have really grown into being kind of like a what I like to call a nerdy for narrative person about?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're huge into storytelling. I mean, even so much that our gameplay really supports what the story ought to be. I think, obviously, on the cinematic side, there's a ton of storytelling within that, the animation, the performance. Our motion capture really allows us to get, the nuance and subtlety that you get from something like a TV show. And then our animators even up that even more. And then our cinematography.
We don't have to rely on characters giving a line. They can just respond with a facial expression with nonverbal communication. And we can just have that be an entire shot, which is really awesome to be able to do that. As opposed to hand key animation, it's a little bit harder. You have to plan a bit more for that. I think that's what's been awesome about working with Cara and Shora is just the performances that you don't expect them to give, and then you can say, ooh, I want to see that, or I want to see that in the edit, and it's awesome.
So we're based out of Colorado, near Denver, And Shore and Cara flew on site to do the motion capture for this, and that was very important to us because we didn't want this to feel like somebody else was doing the performance. We wanted it to be their performance 100%. And the way that drummer moves and talks, can't really replicate that with other people. So it was very important to get us in. And to me, they are the two most iconic voices in the show. So really having those people there, I think, was paramount.
Agree 100%. So you may have seen a little flash of our giveaway up there, and I think maybe now would be a great time to tell you guys we have this really fantastic giveaway that we're doing here at San Diego Comic-Con with the partners at Alienware. It's a laptop, is the M16, and as you can see, it's got this beautiful The Expanse of Telltale series artwork on it. So if you guys want a chance to win this laptop, of course, as it says up there on screen, you can visit the Telltale social channels on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for details, or you can also go to na.alienwarearena.com. So you can get that link on all of the socials. So if you're like, oh, she said the name of the website and I don't remember what it is, to Twitter, or to Facebook, or to Instagram, whichever one is your favorite. And you can get all the details on how you can potentially win that very cool laptop. So thank you to the team at Alienware for putting that together for us, and hopefully someone in this room is gonna be the one that gets it. Woo! Oh, come on, that's the most excited you could get. I know we're the first panel of the day. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the enthusiasm. There's also a cool auction happening.
Yes.
So here you can see from the prop store, The Expanse is having an online auction where you can get the chance to bid on authentic production props and costumes from the show. And of course, as it says there, you can win a gift pack. There is a QR code that you can scan where you can get more details. It's going to run from August 8th through August 29th, and it's all online, and it's all production pieces. So if you're a super fan and you're like, I need to have that helmet sitting on my desk for my Zoom calls, or just to look at and admire or wear from time to time, you can head on over to propstore.com/expanse to register and take a look at all of the pieces that are going to be available in that auction, and register to potentially win that gift pack, because gift packs are fun too.
Hell yes, they are.
Do you guys have any props or anything for the show?
No. Jamie, can I have a prop? Can you buy me one? Is that cool? The president of Telltale right there. No? All right, fine. That's fine. I get it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we had those, side note, at a press event in Los Angeles, it was a month and a half ago, I guess, and it was really cool. They had a bunch of Avasarala dresses. You can see the Marco Inaro suit there, some of the MCRN suits, drummer suit.
Oh, she always had the best outfits, right?
Oh, dude,
Every time she came on screen, it was like that necklace, the dress. I was like, that costumer must have just had a field day.
Exceptional work, yeah, and there were like 4 or 5 of her outfits, so it was awesome to see. But yeah, those are available. You can buy them. It's pretty crazy.
So you're telling me she's got a cool outfit for the episode, yeah?
Obviously.
No
yeah.
pressure.
That was the first question from the art team. They're like, how do we get the best looking dress and have it be flowy and nice? So that was, our art team sounds weird. That's why I did that.
Everybody at Tech 9 talks like this, apparently.
This is the only voice I got. I'm sorry, guys.
But we also are doing a giveaway. If you're here at San Diego Comic-Con, it's not all online. There is an exclusive San Diego Comic-Con Expanse poster. So if you're familiar with the giveaway process here at Comic-Con, you need to go to the Program Premium Hall and get your ticket, and then they tell you where you can go pick it up, to keep things orderly. There is a limited amount of these, so if you want one, we highly encourage you to go at your earliest convenience, but as they say, walk, do not run to get your tickets. And hopefully you guys will tweet, to the team and let them know that you picked up your poster and show all your friends and put it up at home.
This is also done by the artist that did the comic that was done on Kickstarter recently. So if you're familiar with that, the Dragon Tooth comic, yeah. So it was awesome to work with this artist. So you should check it out. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're getting to the end of our time here. Any final thoughts or things you want to leave everybody with on The Expanse, the Telltale series?
Please buy it.
A man of few words.
Subtle, nuanced, to the point. Thank you for coming to this panel. Thank you for interest in The Expanse and the Telltale series. We are very excited to have you all play it, and we really appreciate you coming out to this. So thank you all very much.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your San Diego Comic-Con. July 27th. The game is out. Did we say all the platforms? PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, Epic Game Store, July 27th. Happy Friday!
See you guys.